Hey people, Chilli here from Projects with Chilli, and I hope you enjoyed this video regarding project number 5. It took a little while to make due to the lockdown, and there were a few various issues as you will see in the making of this. I am very happy with the way it turned out, however, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. So thank you for clicking on this and enjoy the following video.
The first thing about this project was the idea of it. I noticed our wedding bouquet wilting away over time, and I wanted to encapsulate it forever. In order to do this, I decided to put the entire thing in a resin pour, with the idea that it would be lit up by LED strip from underneath it from a wooden base. I had the idea in my head for a while, now I just had to figure out how to make it work.
Number 4, I'm beginning to use some hot glue on these paddle sticks, and this will give me a rough idea how big I need to make the cast. So idea is to make these into a square. I will put it around the flowering just to get an idea if I can use a bigger or if I can get away with a smaller design, save a bit of money in the end on that one. Alright, update later.
This was taken from a video I uploaded a few months ago on the channel, and in the video I'm describing how much resin I need for the job. In order to gauge this, I decided to make a cube to fit around the flower, and from that cube I would get dimensions, obviously work out the mathematical equation for how much resin was required for the job. Of course, once the fun mathematics were out of the way, I would then have to cut some perspex to shape and then obviously glue it all together in order to make the cast for all the resin to fit in. Of course, once all the pieces were glued together, you can see the box that was left over. It did require a few other things to be done to it. For example, the edge is required to be siliconed in order for the resin not to fall out the sides. To fully test the seals, I ended up actually pouring water into the unit just to see if anything would leak out. As you can see here, there were some minor leaks. This was a back and forth situation. I ended up repairing it probably about 7 or 8 times, and in the end I just ended up deciding to do a base pour just to give a quick seal.
Sunrise is just for you. So come along and take my hand.
Afterwards, I would position the flower into the location for the pour. We would mix the materials together and do an initial pour again, just to set it so it would not move. This was done with a mica powder of a pink resin. This colour was also chosen to best reflect the light that would be from the base of the fitting.
Look at that initial pour, everybody. I do believe that's quite alright. I'm just hoping that the seals are setting alright. It's a bit hard to tell from here. You can see the little gap there, but we shall see how it goes overnight.
Before the resin hardened, I also placed some flower petals around just to allow it to set properly. A lot of these were placed by hand, but additional ones at the back were placed using wooden sticks or even by the scissors holding the stem of the flower.
Everything reminds me of you, but everything is not enough. Really out by the ocean, and all of those white.
Here are some better close-up photos of these flowers once they had set.
So come along and take my hand.
Now that the mould was ready and that the base layer had been poured, we were ready for the final pour. And this was done in stages due to the thickness of the actual pour. If I could redo this project over again, this would be the one thing I would redo. I would do it as a whole pour instead of multiple pours. And in the end, the project, while it turned out okay, I still look at it and just go, oh, I wish I had done that a little bit differently. You can learn from the past mistakes of your projects, and this was one of them. One of the other issues that we faced during this pour was the fact that the bubbles were forming around the flowers. I ended up doing the method that I'm doing on the screen right now of just pressing and moving around the flowers with a stick just to move those bubbles out. Otherwise they would sit and be there forever. While we wait for that pour, it's time to do the base of this light fitting. And as you can see, this was the measurement required for the fitting, so it's time to get to sawing. With that cut to shape, let's see how the resin pour did. I ended up using clamps just as a precaution to make sure that the resin wouldn't cause any kind of expansion issues. Now comes the fun part of removing the perspex from that actual resin cube, and I thought this part would actually be quite simple and I ended up having to speed the footage up because it took a lot longer than I expected. Finally on to the next stage here, and we'll be sanding off all the edges, as you can see, all along here, up the top. But overall, for getting rid of the cast, it's quite happy with this. This part of the job required a combination of a router as well as my sander and planer. Obviously we had to remove that lip that you can see on screen there and take away any edging that was just not pretty to look at. This did take a lot of time and ended up doing quite alright in the end. I hope it's as satisfying for you as it is me to see that router in action, because it is an incredible tool to work with. Dangerous, but incredibly fun to use as well.
just for you. So come along and take my hand.
And here are some close-up photos pre-sanding. After using the planer and the router, it's time to get to sanding this block and putting it back to a nice polished state. Here are some photos of before and after, just to show the sanding and the grit of sandpaper that was used. I sanded from the grain of 180 grit all the way down to 4500 in the end. Due to the type of sandpaper that was used on this job, I had to re-sand this entire block once again. So, once again, let's get back to sanding. While we wait for the sanding, I ended up hollowing the block out and ended up using some oil on the wooden block to give it a nice finish.
But everything is not enough. Really out by the ocean. And on those white hot sands, where every sunrise is just for you.
And now is the time to put the LEDs in at the bottom of this light fitting. I just did a small piece of a hot glue just at the very corner here, just so the cord would hold in place. And always make sure to test your work before installing. Once sanding was back to its correct method, it was time to buff out, and I used plastics. This can be found in Bunnings under the automotive section. It's used for headlights, but can be used of course for epoxy resin pours, and this is my Milwaukee 12 volt buffer, and it has a high speed buff out of, I think it was 7000 RPM or something like that. And this is on low speed. As you can see, the sheen does quite well. I did a second buff of course, and it just comes out at an incredible sheen. As you can see, here we go on speed 2, high speed, here we go. And we have great success with that polisher. As you can see in the bottom corner here from before a couple of minutes ago, it is just worked a treat. It's a perfect example of what to do. So we just did a test off screen just to see if the polisher would work here, and I believe it's doing a nice job. Have a look at the finish. Maybe it doesn't do it too much justice. Obviously the sides are cloudy still from the sanding yesterday, a bit of cleaning, but the top's come up very nice. So we'll give it a very nice polish, a buff through, see how it goes. These were the layers that I was talking about before, but we are pretty much at the end of the project now, and here are some photos just showing off the light in question, and of course a little bit of Instagram flair to it. So enjoy.
Everything reminds me of you, but everything is not enough. Really out by the ocean.